I think it's Wednesday. It's one of those weeks, but I hope everyone's having a good week. My name's Mark Whittle. I'm a performance and purpose coach, or just general coach, really. I'm the founder of Take Flight. Take Flight is a peak performance business, generally speaking, where I've got a podcast and an events company where we speak with high achievers, peak performers who share their habits, routines, philosophies, mindsets, all the things that make them tick. And we share those practices so people who are listening or attending the events can learn about the things that they can implement into their lives. I shared a video last week or week before around sleep, and Bobby pinged me and said, would I mind coming on and sharing some of the tips and tricks about sleep? So some of you, I think, might have been on the call that I did the other week as well. We did the Wheel of Life, where we did some real basic coaching practices. Yeah, how do you see there? Which help you to understand kind of where you are in your life altogether. So looking from a bird's eye view. So if for those of you who might have carried out that practice, who had perhaps low numbers on some areas, and if you link some of those back to sleep, then this is a good session for you to look into and take some tips away from to try and help with that. So I'm assuming if you guys have joined this, then you do, generally speaking, have trouble sleeping well. Nodding, shaking it, yeah, sort of. Some yes, some no. I'm trying to think how best to make it more interactive, or if people want to ask questions, or should we just use the chat for the time being? So I'll just generally keep talking, and if people have questions, things that they want to, if they want to hear a little bit more on a certain bit, if I say something that sparks a bit of interest, should we just use the chat? Yeah, cool. Okay, so one of the guests that I had on the podcast, this was probably about 1.5 years ago, is a guy called Nick Littlehales. And you might have heard of Nick Littlehales before, but if you haven't, you might have heard of some of his practices that he's kind of brought into the mainstream. So he's a sports sleep coach. He worked with Man United and Arsenal when they were both good. So not anymore, but back in the day, and I can say that because I'm an Arsenal fan, but back in the day, under the Arsene Wenger days and the Alex Ferguson days, he worked very closely with them. He also worked with Team GB Cycling as part of their incremental gains strategy and what they did around London 2012 and winning all the medals that they did at the Olympics. And loads of other people, you know, he's worked with Cristiano Ronaldo and other people like that. So he was on the podcast, I think it was episode 12 or 13, and he's got a book called Sleep. So we'll talk about a lot of this stuff tonight, but if you wanted to look into any more of this stuff yourself, then definitely make a note of that. It's called Sleep, very creatively called Sleep by Nick Littlehales. So yeah, he was on the podcast as well if you want to listen to that. But to give you guys kind of some general information around how our bodies work and something called the circadian rhythm, I'm just going to kind of see if I can get some thumbs up from people the term circadian rhythm before know what it is. Some no, generally no one. Okay, cool. So the circadian rhythm is basically your body clock. So we all, every one of us has a circadian rhythm, and it kind of dictates how our energy levels are, whether we feel awake, whether we feel asleep. And Nick Littlehales, who I mentioned earlier, has a particular strategy or theory that we operate in 90-minute cycles during this circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm makes us feel sleepy at the right time to go to sleep, and it makes us feel awake and alive at the right time that we're supposed to wake up. There's also a load of endorphins that kick into the body as well, which we can encourage them to be released to make us feel more wakeful if you want to feel awake, or more sleepy if you want to feel sleep. But generally speaking, the endorphins that we might have heard of, again, thumbs up if you heard of them, thumbs down if you haven't, but has anybody heard of serotonin or melatonin? Yeah, okay, more thumbs up on that one, awesome. So serotonin is the happy hormone. That's the thing that's released into the bloodstream and into the body that's going to help us wake up. And vice versa, melatonin is the same thing, which is released into the body and into the bloodstream to help us to feel sleepy and help us to start to prepare to wind down. And basically what I'm going to do on this call this evening is just talk to you about practices that we can do to encourage those things to be released at the right time. Because the biggest thing that we all have when we suffer with sleep is just that we're not allowing our body to operate how it should do, because sleep is obviously not is waking up, hopefully. So what it is really that is not allowing us to sleep properly is our routines and our habits and the things that we're doing. So if we start off with our evening routine and talk about ways that we can encourage melatonin to be released into the body naturally, and think more about ways that we can stop forcing our body to feel awake and prolong that feeling of getting tired. The most obvious one, and you guys have probably heard this, is to reduce the amount of blue light that you're getting each evening. So blue light suppresses the release of melatonin into the bloodstream. And things that give out blue light are all the things that we like to do before bed, which is be on our phones, scrolling through social media, be watching TV, even general room lighting is blue light. So 90 minutes is the recommended time, and that's when we want to start to pretty much switch off all devices and start to dim the lighting in the rooms that you're spending time in. So such an easy one to implement, but such a difficult one to make a habit, because it's much easier to sit on your phone scrolling through Instagram or carry on watching that Netflix series. Especially, I don't know if anyone's been watching The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, but it's awesome. So the tip there is 90 minutes before bed, just switch off all your devices. The next thing that's really, really important with regards to your circadian rhythm is that we go to bed and we wake up at the same time. So I know we were starting talking about the evening routine. So make sure that when you think about when you're going to bed, generally speaking, I know it's difficult all the time, less so at the moment while we're in lockdown. We should be able to enforce a pretty good routine at this point. But if you're going to bed at 11 p.m, make sure you try and go to bed every single day at 11 p.m, because that just gets the body used to that routine, and it will start to wind down naturally and get used to falling asleep at the same time every night. And then it's really important, again, at the other side of that, when we're waking up, is trying to wake up at the same time in the morning as well. Again, an easy thing to do, but it's just about being quite strict with ourselves. The next one, I find this quite easy thing to do, is to reduce caffeine and alcohol. Caffeine more so. So you probably know from nights out that alcohol is not good for your sleep. If you've consumed a lot of alcohol, then you're not going to get into deep sleep. So there are phases of sleep as well. It's not particularly important for you to understand this, but there's phases of sleep, and where you get the most rest is in deep sleep. So it's really important we get deep sleep, and alcohol consumption stops you getting into that. So you're kind of just in light sleep all the time. And more often than not, these hangovers and these symptoms of fatigue and tiredness are from a lack of sleep. It's not necessarily from the alcohol, but the alcohol is the thing that's causing you to get the lack of sleep. So just starting to not over consume. And then with regards to caffeine that I mentioned a moment ago, 6 hours is the amount of time that caffeine stays in the body and in the bloodstream. So these people who offer these waiters and waitresses who offer espressos at the end of your meal, probably not the best thing to go ahead and say yes to. So if we're using the example of 11 p.m, then don't have coffee past 5. Another thing, really, really amazing thing and a great thing to recommend to you guys, because you're already doing it, or just to help you understand, is exercise. Exercising daily is going to help us to feel more fatigued in the evening and help us to sleep and get to sleep better, because we need the rest, we need the recovery, and the body's going to start to naturally switch off. So continuing to do your fantastic sessions with Bobby on a daily basis. And another one, this is something you probably recognize a little bit during the summer, is when it starts to get warmer, it's harder to get good sleep. So when it does get hotter, then you might find yourself waking up in the middle of the night. So trying to keep your room cool, keep it generally clean and uncluttered. Similarly to if you have a workspace and you want to try and keep it clear and not cluttered, because it clutters your mind. It's the same thing in the bedroom. If you've got a messy bedroom, it just doesn't put your head in the right mental space to be switching off and feeling relaxed and falling asleep. And then something I wanted to touch on as well, which is kind of just a little bit of something you probably do already, actually, but it's hydrating as soon as you've woken up. So we've spoken a lot about the stuff that you can do in the evening before we go to bed. But when we wake up in the morning, one of the first things that's really, really important to do is to rehydrate, because if it is warm, or if you have a thick duvet, or if you have been drinking, then we can lose up to just under 0.5 kilogram of water during the night, which is, I always think, is mental. But if you, that's the maximum that you can lose. But that's basically through, it's horrible, it's through sweating and just through perspiration and respiration. So a lot of that you lose just through your breath as well. So first thing in the morning, just have 500 milliliters of water. And you can spice it up a little bit if you want by putting some Himalayan salt in it and squeezing a bit of lemon in there as well. So yeah, you might not like the sound of that, but it's really, really good for rehydrating. Good to see you putting faces. Cool. So I'm trying to think, the other one for waking up. So when you're starting the day off, first thing, get up, rehydrate. Next thing, try and get outside and get some sunlight, because the sunlight is the biggest thing that's going to encourage the release of serotonin into the bloodstream. Serotonin, again, as a recap, is the hormone that allows us to wake up. And then probably encouraging that exercise we spoke about earlier in the morning as well. Don't know whether you guys prefer morning or evening exercise, but if you haven't done one or the other, try the other to see which you prefer. But yeah, generally speaking, if you're trying to wake yourself up and you struggle in the morning, then do your exercise. It's also important to mention, actually, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but there's 2 categories generally that we put ourselves into with regards to sleep and rest and recovery. We're either AMers or PMers. So you can start to think a little bit about which category you guys fall into. So an AMer is somebody who's really good in the morning, finds it easier to wake up and get ready for the day. So that will make you an AMer, or you're a PMer. So a PMer is somebody who's particularly good in the evening. So personally, I'm a PMer. I come alive at night. I always feel more creative and I can do stuff in the evening, which means I have to be more focused on my morning routine, waking up, getting that water in, getting in the sunlight, doing my exercise in the morning. So that's kind of all you need to know, really, as far as how the body works, how the body clock works. And there's a few tips that you can put into your life either in the evening or in the morning. There's just a few other hacks that I wanted to recommend to you guys. If those things don't work, they're all natural things that you can try. If those things don't work, then there's some other little hacks that I've tried which you guys could try as well. So the first one is something called blue blockers. Blue blockers they don't look great, but they're basically glasses, and they look like sunglasses, and you can use them while you're watching TV or while you're on. So you don't have to be too strict with this 90-minute switching devices off before bed. So if you have these blue blockers on, it's blocking all the blue light out. You look like a bit of an idiot, but at least you're not getting that suppression of melatonin in the evening. So you can take a look at that. They also do. There are some brands that do pretty cool, like blue blockers and blue light blockers, but they're quite expensive. So yeah, just have a look around if that's something you guys are interested in. Another thing that this has been part of my routine for about 6 months now, which is taking CBD before bed. So there's loads of benefits for CBD, but mostly they talk about anti-inflammation, pain reduction, but it really benefits my sleep. So I take 25 evening before bed, and it helps with all those things, but it's the anti-inflammation, recovery, and all that stuff from my training. But it also really benefits helping me to get a real deep night's sleep and get me into that deep sleep that we want to get into. So that's something I'd recommend. Melatonin is another supplement that we can try. That is, you can actually take the natural. So melatonin is what we spoke about earlier, which is naturally released into the body. We have it ourselves anyway. If you really struggle, then you can take melatonin as a supplement. I wouldn't put this as a recommendation at the top though, because people can often become reliant on it, but it will certainly help because it's the thing that's naturally released now. Giving yourself an extra little bit of melatonin will help. And the CBD do you take, and what kind, from Emma and Neil. So there's loads of really great CBDs. In fact, let me go and show you what I take. Give me 1 second. So these are the 2 CBD brands I'm taking at the moment. So these are friends of mine, 4-5 CBD. Not sure if you are familiar with the brand, great guys, Cruz and Dominic Day, they're both, well, Dominic's a former professional rugby player, and George is still England international. He was British Lions and plays at Sarries. In fact, I think he's just before lockdown, he announced he's going to go to Japan. But yeah, those guys are crushing it. In fact, George has been on the podcast as well, on the Take Flight podcast. So you could listen to that episode as well and hear the kind of journey and why they started it and a lot more about the benefits. But this is a oil. So you spray this one under the tongue. This one's a medium strength. So it's 1,000 grams per bottle. And this was one that some other friends gave to me called Fog. And I actually just liked taking it because it's in tablet form, in capsules. So I think 4 or 5 actually do capsules as well, but this is a spray, so you have to spray it under your tongue. And I just liked knowing I'm getting exactly 25 milligrams per capsule rather than just kind of spraying freehand. Cool. What's the other one? I've written something down there that it's been a long day. I can't even read my writing. Sleep something about sleep. Sleep. Oh, sleep cycles. So because at the beginning I mentioned that this is the theory of Nick Littlehales, which he stands by, that we operate in 90-minute cycles. So if you find yourself waking up in the middle of the night, then don't fret, don't worry, don't stress and back to sleep, because you won't fall asleep. So if you don't, there are certain basically help keep yourself relaxed and help yourself to fall asleep sooner rather than later. So the worst case is that you'll just fall back to sleep again when your next 90-minute cycle is starting, if that makes any sense. Yeah, is that kind of making sense? When you first fall asleep, you'll go into this kind of like light sleep and then down to sleep. And as you come back up into your kind of light sleep again, this is where your 90 minutes is. So if you're waking up, again, you're going to fall asleep again fine if you're not too stressed or not too worried and your room's the right temperature and all the other things that you can incorporate. But if you can't get back to sleep, inevitably your body clock is just working that in 90 minutes you will fall back to sleep again. So try not to stress too much about it. Also, don't be worried about getting out of bed, walking around, going downstairs, doing stuff. It's fine. And don't think that if you're leaving the room, then it's going to affect your sleep further. It's actually probably going to be better because you don't want to be rolling around in bed, getting frustrated, not being able to sleep, and relating that back to being in the room. Sometimes it's better to just get out and change the environment a little bit. And the last one is just a really easy one. If you are going to if you're going to avoid getting these blue blocking glasses, if you are going to get away from your devices, turn off the TV and everything else, and try and incorporate a new routine, the best thing that I've done and allowed me to keep this going as long as possible was just reading. And that was naturally something that had just to switch off. I was once before bed, Harry Potter is recommended. So yeah, I found that reading, it's hard to do it every single night because again, it's hard, like anything routine, if you've been so used to watching TV or whatever you do before bed. But yeah, reading, really easy one to do, switching off, allowing the brain to switch off and the body to fall in suit and do the same. Trying to think if there's any other little pearls of wisdom I can drop while I've got you guys on sleep. But hopefully you guys don't struggle too much with sleep. But if you do, then I'm sure one, if not more of those, will help you guys to attack that a little bit better and get better rest and recovery. I suppose the only other thing that I would say is naps. If you guys do nap or don't nap, I mean, I try to do it every day because it's a big impact when I do it. But give me like 20-30 minutes and wake me up, it kind of knows how long. But naps are fine. Like, don't be afraid to just lie down, shut your eyes and fall asleep for a little bit during the day. It's not going to affect your sleep during the night. In fact, it's probably going to make it better because you're going to feel rested in the right way. Lulls during the day, naturally you're going to feel a lull around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So a lot of people associate that with a post-lunch lull, which isn't the case. It's just the way that the cycles work. So when you're at your deepest sleep, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. So 12 hours later, you're going to be getting that lull around 2 in the afternoon. So If you're working from home or if it's the weekends, then naps at around 2 are a good idea. Generally speaking, try not to nap any later than 6 if you're going to bed around 10 or 11. I think that's it really. Try not to have lights on in your bedroom. Any other questions? We've got like 7 minutes left. Any other questions from anyone? You can either put in the chat or just put in the chat if there's any more. Or on anything for that matter. It doesn't have to be sleep related. Nope. Sleep, good. I'll give you 30 seconds for any more. Himalayan salt lamp. I haven't tried. How soon before bed do you take CBD oil? 30 minutes before bed for CBD oil. The Himalayan salt lamp. I haven't tried one of those. What is it? Waiting for the reply. It's like a lamp that stops blue light. It's like a lamp that stops blue light. I mean, if it stops blue light, then it'll be great. Yeah, I like the sound of that. But Himalayan salt in your drink in the morning is definitely recommended. But yeah, if it stops blue light, then I'm gonna have to look into that. That sounds great. Greg's iPhone. Sorry, I might have missed this, but what do you recommend is the optimum amount of sleep to have each night? So, I mean, it's such a difficult question because there's so many different bits of data out there and research out there around it, but you have to stick to the 8 hours each night. Everyone's different though. So as with anything that you hear or see or read, every single one of us operates differently. No, I need 8.5, sometimes 9 hours sleep. And the best thing about lockdown has been allowing my body just to get that amount of sleep without an alarm. It's been brilliant. But yeah, generally speaking, aim for that 8 hours. If you don't get it and you feel bad, then you know you need more. If you do get it, you just got to go on how you feel in the morning. Sorry, Greg, I'll read the rest of that in a moment when I finish speaking. If you get less sleep, you can catch up and get these cycles in your naps. So again, when we talk about naps, 30 minutes is a good time to aim for. But if you are really tired and exhausted from the previous night, you can go in all out and have a full 90-minute cycle. I'll have to try and think. I have to try and remember how many cycles it was that's recommended, but there's a certain amount of 90-minute cycles per week that are recommended. And typically people say that you can't catch up on sleep, or you can't bank hours, but you can kind of catch up during the week. You can get naps in and get your rest of sleep, by the way, as well, like getting some shut-eye, lying down and not necessarily falling asleep. Studies have shown give you up to 80% of the rest that you would get if you were asleep anyway. Let me see, I'm finding lockdown, working from home, I'm feeling a lot more tired and sleeping more than 8 hours. So just so I'm making sure that I get this right. So Greg, you're saying that because of lockdown, you feel more tired. Are you still working? Are you furloughed? How has your routine changed? Because again, it's very unique and very specific to yourself. Yeah, more lethargic. Why do I feel, okay, I'm just looking at Bradley as well. Why do I feel tired on days when I appear to sleep really well? So yeah, this is the other thing as well. If you do oversleep, it can make you feel more tired. So there's a written amount of rest that you need, and it's range. If you wake up and you think you've woken up early, you actually feel really energized. The way that you can try and avoid that is to make sure that you kind of stick with these sleep cycles that I mentioned, right? So when we're looking at 90-minute sleep cycles, try to calculate roughly, now this is going to go against the 8 hours thing because that's a generic recommendation, but try to calculate how many sleep cycles you're getting in, because waking up in the middle of a cycle when you're coming out of deep sleep, then you're going to feel lethargic. But that might not be the case. You might not be waking up in the middle of deep sleep. It might be the fact that you're oversleeping, over-resting, and that sets the tone for the rest of the day. I hope that kind of loosely helps. I mean, the other thing that I would say as well to avoid feeling lethargic is there's a really great device called a Loonie light, which helps you to enforce, I suppose, your circadian rhythm. kind of hack your circadian rhythm. So if you're feeling lethargic in the morning because you're getting out of your routine of what you're used to, then this Loonie light basically simulates a sunrise, and that sunrise simulation is what would then trigger the release of serotonin in your blood. So essentially, if you have a 7 a.m. alarm, then the light kicks on at 6:30 and gradually gets brighter and brighter and brighter, and simulates the way that, like, we used to sleep outside many moons ago. We'd sleep outside, and that is the natural way for us to wake up with the sun only comes in, simulating the sunrise, and then you feel naturally charged with serotonin by the time that the alarm goes off. Just reading Greg again, I just wasn't sure if overly can have a detrimental effect on us and make us more like you can. So it's difficult. Again, it's something you've got to play with and decide what works for you. But if you've been used to wake up at 6 a.m. every single morning of your life for going into work, and suddenly now you're sleeping until 8, 9, and the body's going to react badly to that. So maybe get up and do an earlier class, or flick back to your old routine. Oversleeping definitely will make you feel lethargic. But then, look, at the same time, if you are feeling lethargic in the morning, there's lots of things that you can do to wake yourself up. Like we said, get out in some sunlight, drink your water first thing, do your exercise, and hopefully those things will work. And if not, then just, yeah, as I said, dial back and get up earlier. No worries. So is there a recommended amount of hours of sleep then? So Addy, so the general recommendation is 8, and I know it's sounding a little bit all over the place, but the general recommended hours is 8 for everyone. But because everyone's different, you've got to figure out what works for you. What Nick Littlehale says, the sleep sport coach, says that we operate on 90-minute cycles. So for us to feel or get the most out of ourselves and out of our bodies and out of our minds is to operate on this 90-minute cycle. So to calculate how many cycles you need per night. I never ever hit 8. I have a Fitbit and it shows me how many hours. It's normally 6, 6.5. So again, it depends, and I'm just got to address you directly there, Addy. So is that 6.5 hours sleep that the Fitbit's calculating through the app that you're asleep while you're in bed, or is that literally you're having 6.5 hours in bed? Because I know that these apps and these Fitbits and all these devices, you're in bed for longer than that, right? But they calculate how long you're asleep. So I don't know whether you know the answer to that, but have a look at that and see how accurate it is, because there's probably, I mean, it's with the tracker and monitors your heart rate. So when I'm sleeping, it's pretty accurate. Yeah. So then again, there will be people who know more about this than me, because I don't use these devices. So I can only really speak to my experience. But I go to bed at about 11 o'clock and I get up at 7. So I hit my 8 hours. There will be nights where I have slept better and there'll be nights where I've slept worse. So your 6 hours might be coming from the fact that maybe you have been on your phone a little bit and you haven't got into that deep sleep and felt more rested. Maybe take some CBD and get into a bit of a deeper sleep, and don't have that extra 2 hours that you're rolling around, maybe not quite awake. And again, you got to think, are you actually consciously aware of the fact that you're not awake? Sorry, we're talking about circles. Are you consciously aware of the fact that you're not asleep for a couple of hours of that time that you're in bed as well? I don't know if I fully trust those devices and stuff. I think just go on the way that your body feels. Not really. Okay. So I would just go, if you, to be honest, you know, we heard from Greg earlier, feeling lethargic. If you're feeling good on what the app is telling you is 6 to 6.5 hours sleep, then that's great. That's all that really matters. If you're not feeling good on it, then maybe address the routines before bed and what you're doing in the morning as well to get that routine back in, get that body clock working, so that you're getting longer hours sleep. I wouldn't always rely on those devices just for that. There's so many things that come into play for it. I hope that makes sense. And I'm not looking at anyone at this point, so I'm hoping you're all still there. So if anyone's got any other questions, you can throw it in the chat box because I'm just reading that now. It's come up to 6:30, so happy to take 1 or 2 more questions if anyone's got any. Again, doesn't have to be about sleep. No. Awesome. Looks like we're good. Let me unmute everyone.
Nice one, Mark.
Awesome.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
thank you.
Really good.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.